What's up, YouTube? This is Smart coming to you once again with my view of the world. Today, I want to I'm going to start breaking down some of these videos that I see from these so-called black Trump Republicans. I call them Trump Republicans. I don't think they're really real Republicans. So today, I'm going to start a new thing in breaking down some of these videos I see with all these half-truths that they're telling and misconceptions that they're giving out. I'm going to start breaking them down. So today we have Patricia Dickson, who put out a video about a week ago. And she said some things that are true. There's some facts to them, but she's not telling the whole truth. So I'm going to put my spin on it. Well, not really a spin. I'm going to put my facts to it and let you know how much she's leaving out of her facts. So here we go.
A few minutes and clarify something that I said in my previous video about the so-called Southern strategy. I had said that black people had started voting Democrats in the 1960s after they helped JFK get elected. And a lot of people said, well, no, it started in the 1930s. Okay, the Northerners started voting for Democrats under the FDR's New Deal in the 1930s. And you have to realize the Northerners were not under Jim Crow laws. They were not under Democrat legalized discrimination laws like the blacks in the South. So the blacks in the South were voting Republican because they had always voted Republicans, and it was the Democrats that were trying to oppress them and suppress their votes. So that is why Democrats were suppressing the blacks' votes. That's why Democrats put those restrictive voting laws on the books, like literacy tests and poll taxes, because they knew that black people, if they let them vote, when they voted, they were going to vote for their freedom. They were going to vote for the Republican Party.
Now, I stopped it there because so far, she already put out some bogus facts. All right, for one thing, the Democrats in the South, in 1930, let's go back up. In 1930, who was president? A Democratic president, FDR. Now, FDR was the last president, period, to have more than 2 terms. After that, they passed a law and they put a term restriction on it after the FDR. Now, she said that blacks in the North voted Democrats in 1930. And blacks in the South wanted to vote Democrats. Now, I'm going to show you how bogus that is. When FDR came to power in the 1930s, what happened in 1929? We had the Great Depression happen. The stock market crashed, sent this country in turmoil, made this chaos. It was just chaos everywhere. There was no jobs. Food was just like crazy. All right, so when FDR came to power, what did he do? He put social programs into effect. Job programs, feeding programs. Now, as a Democrat, why would Southern Democrats why would a Southern black want to vote for a Republican when the country is in chaos and you have a Democratic president who is putting out social programs? Now, I did a video on this not too long ago, and I kind of broke it down to where I was showing people where blacks started voting Democrat. And this is where blacks started to vote Democrat in the 1930s when FDR came to power. Not only blacks, but the whole country kind of shifted toward voting Democrat. And the reason why is because of FDR and his social programs. What is the number one thing that people always talk about today in the Republican Party, which black Republicans talk about? Oh, blacks love Democrats because they put out all these social programs. All right. So why would a black in 1930 want to vote vote Republican when FDR is giving them social programs? So she's not being honest when she said that. In 1930, the majority of blacks shifted to voting Democrat. I don't care if you're in the North or you're in the South, because FDR and his social programs, they was voting what they needed, which was jobs and food. All right, let's continue.
If blacks had been voting Democrats, it would have been no reason for the Democrats to put those restrictions on the voting for voting laws for blacks. Well, basically, they were for blacks because they.
Now, one other thing I left out in the Jim Crow South, majority of the blacks didn't vote anyway, and the reason why they didn't vote is not because the whites didn't want them to vote Republicans. They didn't vote because white people didn't want them to vote at all. So that's the reason why they didn't vote, a lot of the time in the South. A very small percentage of blacks voted in the South. And that's the reason why. Because of the issues they had to go through in order to vote for anybody. So it's not because they wanted to vote Republican. No, it's because they didn't want them to vote at all. Period.
If they put that law into place, some blacks couldn't read. Some blacks wouldn't have enough money to pay the poll tax. It was all to keep blacks from voting Republicans. In other words, voting their freedom. Now I want to talk about the Civil Rights bills timeline, because there's a timeline for civil rights bills. One of them started in 1957 when President Eisenhower voted for a civil rights bill, and that bill was the first civil rights bill in 82 years. The last civil rights bill that had been passed was in 82 years prior to Eisenhower's 1957 civil rights bill, and that, of course, was a Republican as well.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. Now, she's talking about the 1957 civil rights bill, which was passed by Eisenhower. That's true facts. Then she said that was the first bill since in 82 years, which she's talking about the bill of 1875, which was of a Civil Rights Act. Basically, it was a bill saying that, everybody was equal in the law in 1875. Now, only thing about that is, though, in 1866, they already had passed another Civil Rights Act, which a lot of people forget about, which was basically like the one in 1875, which was to give everybody equal under the law. So basically, they passed two bills. 1866, 1875 was basically the same bill, which I don't understand why we got to keep passing civil rights bills saying the same thing. But that's what they did, and that's what she's referring to, the bill of 1875, which gave everybody made everybody equal under the law, which we all know how that went, because if it was a federal law and everybody was supposed to be equal under the law, including blacks, especially blacks, why did we go through all this Jim Crow? Why did we go through all these Jim Crow laws in the South still, if the federal had passed all these Civil Rights Act prior? Good question. Think about it. Now, also, she's saying that, there was a Republican president in 1875, which is true, which was Grant. Now, we all know the joke about Grant. Grant really is supposed to be the worst president ever. So I don't really think that that's anything to brag about when it comes to a Republican president, because he wasn't the best. He was a drunk. All right, let's move on.
That passed that one. But the 1957 Eisenhower civil rights law that got passed, Democrats filibustered that bill, and Senator Lyndon Johnson at the time, he was a senator, voted against that bill.
Now, she telling the truth. Lyndon B. Johnson did vote against the bill. But when she said that the Democrat filibustered that bill, she left one major important part out of that statement. Do you know which senator, before Rand Paul did it, I think Rand Paul did it like in 2013, I believe, before he did it, who had the longest filibuster of all time? It was 24 hours. You know who did that? Senator Strom Thurmond, who was a Democrat at the time and became a Republican. She left that important part out. So let's move on.
Okay. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. and Reverend Ralph Abernathy, both of them, and most blacks supported Eisenhower in 52 and 56 election because they were Republicans, and Eisenhower was a strong civil rights president.
Now, I did a video on this earlier too. Martin Luther King was not a Republican. Martin Luther King basically stood up for any civil rights. So if there was a Republican in office and he thought that Republicans was good for the Democrats, good for him, and for black people, that's the way he went. If you notice, Kennedy came to power in 1960. And what did Martin Luther King do? He started going to Kennedy for civil rights issues. So Martin Luther King was not a Democrat and he was not a Republican. Martin Luther King was a person who only saw something that would, if it benefits the black community, that's the way he went. So no matter if it was a Republican office or a Democrat in office, that's the stand that he took. Let's move on.
In fact, Eisenhower met in 1958. This is after he's already passed his 1957 Civil Rights Bill. In 1958, he meets with Martin Luther King and other African American leaders, which to do what? To discuss plans to advance more civil rights. Because each bill added a little more, I guess, to the civil rights. So so he met with that Martin Luther King and black leaders, and they discussed plans to advance more civil rights. And so after that, President Eisenhower, I'm reading my notes because I don't want to leave anything out because this is so important. In February 4th, 1959, President Eisenhower, he informs Republican leaders of his plan to introduce a 1960 Civil Rights Act. And then on May the 6th, 1960, President Eisenhower signs a Republican Civil Rights Act of 1960. Okay? 18 Senate Democrats filibustered that bill for 125 hours round the clock.
Now, as I was saying before, Strom Thurmond in 1957, he filibustered for 24 hours. Strom Thurmond was still part of the Senate, and he was still a Democrat at that time also. So like I say, they keep saying Democrat. But you notice one thing about her? When she was talking about black Democrats, she separated northern black Democrats and southern black Democrats. But when she talk about Democrats in Congress, she never separates it. She never separates it. She never tells you that northern Democrats was for these civil rights bills. Southern Democrats was against these civil rights bills. Now, the reason I say that because this plays a very important part when it comes to the Southern strategy. That's why I break it down like that. Because a lot of people say there is no such thing as Southern strategy. There was never a switch. But there was a switch and there was a Southern strategy. Now, I'm going to let her play a little bit longer. But then after that, I'm going to stop it because I'm not going to go through. Her video is like 60 minutes long. I'm not going to break down the whole video. But I'm going to let her play a little bit longer. And then I will finish up with the Southern strategy.
18 Democrat senators filibustered Eisenhower's 1960 Civil Rights Bill. Lyndon B. Johnson, who of course was still in the Senate, voted against Eisenhower's 1960 Civil Rights Act as well as the 1957 one.
Now, I'm going to just make myself clear again because she keep putting Lyndon B. Johnson in this, that he voted against this. Strom Thurmond also voted against this. Strom Thurmond also voted against this. Now, just want to make that clear.
So this is showing you that Lyndon B. Johnson never wanted any civil rights for black people. He was not a proponent for civil rights, okay? But, so, we fast forward, of course, JFK gets assassinated. And JFK had also, since the blacks had gotten him in office, he got the majority of the black vote when he got elected, he had also promised JFK that he's going to do another civil rights bill. So, but he gets assassinated.
Now, I did stop it again. I'm sorry. I had to stop it again because she said something very important. She said that black people put JFK in office. Now, was that northern blacks? Southern blacks? Which one was it? You have to remember now, black people just voted for Eisenhower. And according to her, black people in the South couldn't really vote. And the white Democrats in the South didn't want them voting because they were so afraid that they wouldn't vote Republican. So what happened? Did black people in the South vote Democrat also? Like the black people in the North? Just think about that for a second. Think about it.
Lyndon B. Johnson is his vice president, okay? So Lyndon B. Johnson assumes the presidency. So we have the black vote now. We have the Democrats are getting 90% basically of the black vote. So Johnson didn't want to lose the black vote. He didn't care anything about civil rights, but he wanted to keep the black vote. So he had to come through with the civil rights bill again.
Now, she said black people are voting 90% Democrat now. This is when Kennedy came to power. Now, she's right. They was voting 90% Democrat. And the reason why they was voting 90% Democrat, it goes back to 1930 with FDR. Because that's when they really started voting Democrat. And they didn't change back over. They continued to vote Democrat up until forever after that. You know, it get kind of a little bit better. It was like, actually, I think 90% is too high, and I forget the number, but it was a very high percentage of them voting Democrat in the 1960s, up until 1964, when that percentage really increased even more because of the Southern strategy. But let her continue on.
So what he did was, so I told you, the Democrats at that time had the majority in the Senate and the majority in the House. But none of them, of course, wanted civil rights either. Johnson didn't want it either, but he had to do something to try to keep the black vote. So
there she go again. She's saying the majority. She failed to realize one thing, she's not separating it. Northern Democrats was different than Southern Democrats. Northern Democrats was all for civil rights. They was all on board civil rights. The Southern Democrats was the ones who had the issue. So it was two different Democrats, Northern Democrats and Southern Democrats.
He had to go to Senate Minority Leader Everett Dirskin. Somebody told me I was pronouncing it wrong. It's Dirksen. Dirskin. I said Dirskin. Maybe that's how you spell his name. He had to go to get him to get the bill even through Congress. The bill passed. The 1964 Civil Rights Bill passed, but Democrats filibustered that one as well.
All right, now I'm gonna stop it right here. I'm on just because the video is very long, so I'm gonna stop it. And we're gonna talk about the Southern strategy because this right here is really when the Southern strategy took place in 1964. Now, what happened in 1964 that she's not telling you is that was a guy by the name of Barry Goldwater who wanted to run for president. And he actually was a Republican, which no one wanted to talk about Barry Goldwater. When the Republicans start talking about civil rights and stuff like that, they kind of leave out Barry Goldwater. And the reason they leave him out because Barry Goldwater voted against the Civil Rights Bill as a Republican. And the reason why he did that, because he wanted to show Southerners, he wanted the Southern vote when he ran for president. So that's why he voted against the Civil Rights Bill. And that's where that Southern strategy started coming in at. Barry Goldwater and Richard Nixon did it even more also. They started kind of playing on the Southern racist views, like Civil Rights Act, which he voted against. And that's when the turn started taking. That's when Strom Thurmond became a Republican, which no one tells you about that. Because he voted against the Civil Rights Act again. Then he switched parties. That's when he became a Republican. And that's also when Jesse Helms became a Republican during this civil rights thing. So when they tell you that it was never a switch from Democrat to Republican in the South, they're lying to you. There was a switch. And this is when that switch started taking place in 1964 with Barry Goldwater. Because Barry Goldwater ran for president and he started playing on the Southern racist views. And the Southern racist views started kind of like moving over to him because he was aligning himself with those racial views. You know, also, a lot of Southerners was already social conservatives already. You know, so it didn't take that much to switch them over. You know, so that's why people like Strom Thurmond, people like Jesse Helms moved over to the Republican Party also because of that Southern strategy, which did take place. So when Candace Owens and Miss Dickson tell you that there was no such thing as a Southern strategy, they're lying to you because it was. You know, and then on top of that, if you look at common sense, what y'all think happened in the South? You think that every Southern Democrat just got up and moved north, and then all the Northerner Democrats, all the Northern Republicans moved south? You know, it's like, come on, let's be real. So there was a Southern strategy. There was a flip because of Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater was basically the father of the Southern strategy. Then Richard Nixon came along in 1969, and he took it even further. Now, one last thing I want to let you realize before I let you go. Ken Mayhem, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try it, but he was the RNC chairman in 2005. And you know what he did in 2005? He apologized to the NAACP because of the Southern strategy. Because he knew that a lot of black votes was taken for granted during that time. And the Republican Party vilified a lot of blacks due to racial issues. So he apologized in 2005. Now, these are facts. You can look this up. His first name is Ken. I can't pronounce his last name, but he was the RNC chairman in 2005, and he apologized to the NAACP because of that strategy. Facts. So my thing is, I just want everybody to understand that all these so-called black conservatives, I take that back. All these so-called black Trump conservatives, they're selling you a bill of goods on falsehoods. So think about that. Just really think about that. These people are not putting out true facts. They're putting out partial facts, but they're not giving you all the details. My job from this point on, when I see videos like this, is to break them down and give you real facts, because it's not doing black kids any justice when it comes to history. We're giving them a false sense of history, and that's not good. Thank you.